This is Vespasian, and we are today going to be showing you the next video in our Dark Age project, which is the Saxons.
My favourite army! Yay!
Saxons are rubbish.
No, they're not.
Okay, so here are the Saxons deployed in front of you. These are the only bases I've got done so far. Sorry, I can't paint everything at the same time. I've only just got the Saxon infantry, so that's quite good. These guys here are Saxon Thanes. Saxon Thanes. I think there's a Saxon Thane on the box. These are your basic housecarls of the Saxon army. I'll show you the rear. You will notice there is a certain uniformity to them, as in they all have the same uniform on. They all have the same colour jerkin, because the Saxon army wore, just like the Vikings, a leather jacket which had sleeves, and over the top they wore chainmail and a helmet. So they basically wore a uniform. The Saxon army was not what you would think of being a
Standard army.
A Dark Age army. Most Dark Age armies weren't Dark Age armies. Saxons were professional soldiers. They had a professional army that stood all year round. Many armies, or many small armies in small states, would have the situation where during the winter they wouldn't do any fighting because there wasn't enough food, so you didn't have any energy to fight. And then when spring came, you sowed all your crops, and then you had a few months while the harvest was growing to go and fight battles. Now that was certainly true after the fall of the Roman Empire. But this is Saxon Britain, Anglo-Saxon Britain. The Saxons, by this stage, were very well organised. They had a standing army. Men who joined the army arrived at a camp. They received a shield, weapons, all made in forges sponsored by the state. So they were a standing army. And the housecarls were basically professional soldiers who all their job was to fight. They didn't have to worry about farming and doing anything annoying like that. The Saxon infantry you see here are just the normal Dark Age figures you get out of the Dark Age box, because they're Dark Ages. They don't have any form of uniform. They basically are wearing the clothing they turned up on. They would most likely wear a leather jerkin underneath their overcoat. Not a particularly brilliant jerkin, but better than having nothing at all.
Yeah.
Some would wear a leather breastplate, which would be actually quite good at stopping cuts and things.
Javelins.
Yeah. I'm not even sure it would stop. Yeah, it probably would stop a javelin.
It would probably still hit you.
Yeah.
But not. It won't have the full effect.
It won't go straight through your body.
Have armour.
Yeah.
Better than wearing bearskin.
Yeah. Now, there is a kind of truth to the idea that everyone had a shield and everyone had an axe, and it will be hung up over the fireplace. There is an element of truth to that, because at this time in Britain, everybody by law had to carry a mace.
Yes, and you're not allowed to go to the pub without a mace.
You're not allowed to go to the pub without a mace. So everyone carried a weapon, because these were dangerous times.
How do you know that's true though?
Because archaeological evidence shows that most people were buried with a mace. So people obviously owned.
Everybody owned a mace.
Yeah, the Vikings did. The Vikings had maces. Interestingly, no one does figures of Vikings with maces, and yet the mace was a pretty important Viking weapon, because your sword tends to bend unless you can afford an Ulfbert sword. So your sword would bend, and there's many Viking sagas where the hero stops in the middle of a battle to bang his sword back into shape.
Or in the horror movie where everything goes slow motion and he's looking around, looking at a battlefield and navigating what's going on.
Yeah, that's adrenaline.
And can take on like 10 people at once.
Yeah. So, one guy against two guys, the one guy loses. Sorry, that's how real life works.
You'll block one of the guy's swords, the other guy will stab you. Boom, done.
Yeah, which is what the French didn't like about the British. The French would be at war with the British, and there would be a French guy fighting against a British knight or British man at arms. And
what you're supposed to do is one-on-one.
yeah, that's what the French guy was trying to do. He's like, you, I will fight you, ting ting, and then another knight would run up and hack him in the back.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, hang on a minute, that's not chivalry. And the British were like, who cares, we're going to win. The British had no sense of, if you're fighting a war, you go von Clausewitz on them. You burn everything, you kill everyone until they don't want to fight anymore.
Yeah.
You just make them not want to fight, and that's how you end a war pretty quickly. So the Saxons they had a core army of well-trained soldiers. That's these guys. Hence they're all wearing the leather jerkin over the top of their clothing. There's a few figures where you can see the cloth underneath. I did think about doing this with the Vikings, but when I tested it with the Vikings looked too uniform, and I didn't want the Vikings. I just have a thing. I know it's not exactly.
Are you OCD?
No, it's just you want to do things right as to what you know they were, but on the other hand, you have so many Hollywood films that you were brought up with as a child, and you go, well, they don't look like that, they look like this. Well, no, Vikings never had horns on their helmets, but you can still buy figures. You can still buy figures with horns.
Even in Minecraft PC, they had to have Viking helmets.
Viking helmets
which have horns.
Yeah, which is fake. They never had horns.
It was just an ordinary helmet.
Yeah, no, Vikings never had horns on their helmets. No one had horns on their helmet. In fact, I think you have to go. Which I think who did have horns? Hittites.
Didn't Turkey have some horns?
Turkey? No, they didn't have horns. No, they had
they
a spike.
One spike thing on top of
Yeah, they had the spike to make them look taller. You put a spike on the top of the helmet, which makes you look like you're higher than everyone else. The Janissaries did too. The Janissaries had a huge lump of cloth coming out the top of their hat to make it look as if they were much taller than they were.
Turkey did that as well in the musket period, the gunpowder age.
Yeah, the Janissaries kept basically the same uniform right up until modernisation after Mehmed II, who is one of my favourite ever Turks.
I don't actually know then. Who actually used horns for the helmet? I think it's just made up myth.
I seem to think the Hittites did in the Bible. I seem to think that was mentioned in the Bible, but then again, it's probably made up anyway. So a lot of the stories are stories which have been told again and again and again and again, and not necessarily.
As it gets told, someone changes it every single time going down the line.
Yeah, you keep changing the story to match
what you think it should be.
Yeah, I'll give you a good for instance. There was a chap. Was it Schiaparelli? No, it could have been Schiaparelli. There was a guy who liked to look at planets and stars with a telescope, and he looked at the gas giant, Jupiter. And he saw Jupiter and said, this planet's amazing, it's covered in clouds. Therefore, if there's clouds, there must be water, because on Earth we have clouds and water. Therefore, how would the civilization of creatures living on the planet get around? Well, the only way you get around is on boats. And with boats, you need rope. And therefore, most of the time...
It's a different design of boat, though.
Yeah, but most of the time of the people living there would be spent making rope to put masts and put boats together. Because to him, that's how you get around. You get around on a boat, on water. Well, that's putting your own personal view of the world onto another planet. Of course, if we were going to say how would the Jupitans get around, they get around in a spaceship or a helicopter or a submarine. So they need steel and metal, but that's not what he thought, because he didn't know that the combustion engine could be built. He didn't know that sails wouldn't be used on ships anymore in the future. He didn't know people would fly.
No.
So you put your own ideas onto the other thing, and that's a problem with history, as people get their own ideas and they say, Saxon times, women were repressed. Why? Because women are repressed when you're writing it. Saxon times, 30% of the soldiers were women.
Also, when they're writing it,
they put their own... Yeah.
They make it present time.
Yeah, the study of...
past.
When archaeologists used to do bodies up of Saxons and Vikings, they would say, there's a sword, it's a man. Right? But tests on bones show that about 40% of dead Vikings with armour and swords are women. So about 40% of the Viking soldiers were women, and about 30% of Saxon soldiers were women.
Was it War 1 where women weren't allowed to go to war?
Yeah, only in the Western Allies.
That's stupid though.
The Russians had female soldiers.
Actually, it's alright.
Turks had
You know,
female
we need
soldiers.
someone to look after the farming industry and we need people to do.
Yeah, but you've already
Steel
got
work
farmers. That's
and-
this is why we didn't win the war, right? And oh yeah, we won the war. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, no, we didn't. Poland was occupied by Russia. We didn't win the war.
No, Russia won the war.
You go to war, and what's the first thing you do? You draft all the able-bodied men in. Well, what's that mean? It suddenly means you've got no one to work in factories. You've got no one to work on the field. So what do? You get women who didn't have a job at that point, and you put them to work in factories. So only one in every 3 shells made by the British Army detonated. We were the biggest supplier of Germany for shells, for gunpowder. The Germans had no source of gunpowder themselves. They had no
Where
way
did
to
we get
get
gunpowder from?
our shells. They used to just go out, collect our shells that we'd fired at them, take the gunpowder out and turn it into, take the explosives out and fire them back at us.
That's a fail.
Yeah, it was
Anyway.
unbelievably stupid.
Back to Vikings.
Back to Vikings, but the same thing applies. The same thing applies. If you get all your farmers, put them in armour, and give them a sword, and tell them to go and fight, who's going to look after the animals?
No.
Who's going to do? No, it doesn't work like that. So you have farmers whose job it is to be a farmer.
Yes. To be
That's all they do. They farm.
Not a soldier, a farmer.
Not a soldier, a farmer. Because if that farmer gets killed, then how does anyone else know how to bring up the cows and when to feed them, what to feed them, how to
Just
treat
use their luck.
illnesses? Yeah.
And,
So farmers are farmers, right? In an emergency, if your farm has actually been tramped on by Vikings or Danes or Normans, then fine, get out your axe and your shield from above the fireplace and defend your family. But farmers are farmers, traders are traders. You can't draft everyone into the army because you will just get men killed for no reason. Hence the First World War, the Second World War, pointless. Most of those men should never have been in combat. They weren't fit for it. They didn't have the mentality to fit for it. Soldiers need to be psychopathic, to be honest. Soldiers need to be able to do horrific things.
I think shell shock was only meant to be people who didn't want to be in the war.
Oh, quite.
Pretended to be ill.
Well, if I got drafted, if I got drafted and sent to the front lines to fight, I'd probably have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't want to die! Right, it's time to get up and walk slowly towards the enemy machine guns.
Oh my god!
Actually, maybe uneducated people would have been better leading our army, because the educated people thought it was a jolly good idea to behave the way we did in World War One, which is what got all the men killed, whereas the sensible people would have pointed out the bleeding obvious.
I was pointing the gun to the officer and said, "Let's go, we'll shoot you."
Well, most British officers were actually killed by a bullet in the back, so they were murdered by their own men.
And the leg bit.
The French officers had their trousers taken off. This is completely different.
For embarrassment.
Yes.
Meaning, right, you gotta go back there. Go back there.
Yeah, because France was a republic and it had no aristocracy who would walk in and say, "Well, my grandpapa went to Eton, don't you know? I think sent me to Eton, sorry. I think all you chaps should do what I say because you're peasants." The French couldn't do that because they were a republic. They'd already killed all their rich people. So an officer was appointed. He wasn't born to be an officer, whereas in the British Army, officers are born to be officers.
And anyhow, I think that's everything explained about the Saxons.
I haven't gone into the shields yet.
Meaning, we've been talking for like 40 minutes.
Yes, we're talking. So, here are the Saxons. You may notice the shields. Now, one thing about the Saxons, you've seen my Vikings, I have all different coloured shields for the Vikings. I'll give you a quick look of all the different individual shields. Each Viking has his own shield design, and also the Vikings didn't keep their shield designs throughout their life, they would just paint whatever they wanted. The Saxons, on the other hand, were a standard army. And a lot of people look at things like, say, well, look at the Bay of Tapestry. Look, all the different shield designs. Well, a slight point about the Bay of Tapestry is all the non-knights are in uniforms. They're all wearing the same uniform. And for the British and the Saxons. All of the knights on horseback, each one is an individual person. He's an individual knight. And he would have 8 to 10 personal soldiers, and they would all wear the same livery. So you could see who they were, and you knew who they were on the battlefield. So that's not really a good guide. All that's saying is we know what this knight wore and what his men wore. So this is a unit of soldiers with a thane commanding them, and these are his personal retainers. Hence they all have the same shield design. Over to these guys at the back. Now these guys are a bit different. They all have a yellow and black theme to their shields. I haven't done the same design on them all. There's a reason behind this. Red was the most expensive paint that you could get to paint, and therefore the housecarls would afford red paint.
Yes.
The cheapest paint in Britain at the time was ochre, or yellow. It was really cheap. We used to paint our buildings and everything. It was the cheapest paint you could get your hands on. And so I painted the shields black and yellow because it's cheap, and I don't think that a Saxon would have expended a huge amount of money arming the lesser trained troops, the levy. A lot of Saxons had to serve in the army for I think 2 seasons. You had to spend with the army, just for your basic training. So if there was ever a major war, then you could always have troop men who were trained to fight.
And already in their house.
Yeah, men who did normal jobs like making shoes and stuff, who could actually join the army and be actually useful in combat. If you just give a man a spear and a shield and say, go fight, then he's going to die. And he's going to be a waste of time and effort.
He's not trained.
Yeah, he's just going to run away. And he's no use on the battlefield. You need to sit them down, teach them how to fight, teach them how to behave in combat, and fall off the base. Yeah, so basically that's what this is. I did avoid putting the leather jerkin on these. As I said, they can wear the under jerkin because I didn't want them to look too uniform. But I had the same problem with my Vikings. So that is basically it. I've given all the regular troops, or the rear troops, the yellow and black design on their shields, but they can actually do their own designs because they just get a tin of paint and they get a shield they shoot to them, and they just paint it whichever way they want. So there's a bit of individuality for those soldiers. Also, the more bases I get, I will actually be able to separate them out and make them into units if I ever need to do that for a future project, such as at Hastings, stuff like that, if you do late. So that's it. Lastly is the commander. Here's the commander. He's a lovely little chap. This is the guy who's commanding the British army, the Saxon army, with his little trumpeter and a dead guy on the command base.
That was showed last video.
Did we show that in the last video?
Yeah.
But that's Saxon.
Yeah, you showed it and you said, oh, this is just a little preview for our Saxons.
Yeah.
And you showed the dead guy.
Well,
thing.
Anyway, they are the Saxons. They're quite fun. I've done 3 bases so far. I have much more to do, but it's just showing you the beginnings. I'm not going to explain the basing because I did that in the last video and I don't want to keep repeating myself. Needless to say, they are based individually on movement trays, which you can get from various retailers. I get these off eBay. If I shop on eBay, I buy a lot of stuff off. My wife isn't here at the moment. I wouldn't tell you the web address if I could remember.
That's why
the way so I kind of stuck here on his own. Got nothing to do, so we thought we'd make some YouTube videos.
Help.
Bored.
Help, please.
Well, I can go on Halo and kill stuff.
Yes.
Yay, that's great. I was being killed by French people the other day, which was quite fun. They couldn't understand a word I was saying to them. I was like, yeah, I'm from England, what about you? I was like, I don't know what you're saying, you're fine. And they kept shooting me. Oh, they kept complaining that I was getting shot, I think more likely, but yeah. So, yes. Last point. Typically, the Saxons fought with the front row having swords and axes, and the rear row having spears. Long spears. And the long spears would be brought forward, and the men with the shields and stuff would fight in front. So I have divided all these units out, so you can actually do that with these units. Same with the Saxon in the front. Each man at the back's got a spear, and the front guys have got axes and swords. That's how the Saxons fought. So that's about it. Yeah. Saxons, it's your army.
Yep, my Saxon army. My Saxon.
And I do think these Saxons look quite good with the jerkin. I keep saying it, but it's awesome. It does give them a uniformity which the Saxons did have. However, the downside is the not having the same for the support infantry. But I'm going to live with that because I've got an idea for the support infantry later. I still haven't looked at the actual. I still haven't got a copy of the rulebook, so I still don't know what unit options you have. But I'm going to have some medium infantry in leather jerkins. Which sourcing them isn't that easy at the moment, but that's an idea I've got for a future part to this army, and I will explain all of it as we go along. So I'm showing you my Saxons now. We only have 3 bases and a command unit, but it's a beginning.
Yes, beginning.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll be able to bring you a battle soon as soon as we've got enough figures. Pardon me, I've suddenly got hiccups for no apparent reason.
Meanwhile, we'll still be doing our campaign.
Yes, we're still doing our Hail Caesar campaign.
Losing, yes. That's stuff, yes.
You've lost 2 battles. I mean, it's hardly you losing.
I can't win.
You know the great thing about ancient warfare? If you lose a battle, it doesn't matter. You just fight another battle. That's the great thing about ancient warfare. Winning a war involves fighting lots and lots of battles. So there's no reason you're necessarily going to lose. So there we go. That is the end of the video. And I would like to say... Leave a like. Subscribe.
And leave comments down below and we'll answer any questions.
Yep.
Questions in our Q&A videos.
Yep, so thank you very much.
I think we'll have a Q&A coming up after this video soon.
Yeah, probably
if we get
tonight.
Any comments during them.
We'll film a Q&A tonight. We've got a few questions we've got to do, but unfortunately I haven't got access to the laptop, so I can't actually look them up. And my wife's wandered off, so you know she does that occasionally. We'll let her out now and then, not often, but you know. Yeah.
Look, she's the commander of this whole house.
Yeah, I know.
We have no power in this house.
We're very Viking in this house. The woman's in charge. Right, so there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and all the other stuff. This has been Vespasian. Good day.
Bye.